Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, Mr. Speaker, I wish to join others who have gone before me to congratulate you on your appointment, on your election as Speaker, and to wish you well. I also, Mr. Speaker, wish to inform honorable members that earlier today I had some discussions with you, Mr. Speaker, concerning a private matter which is very urgent. In fact, I was about to leave, but since this opportunity has been given to me, I will speak now and leave immediately after to deal with this very private and personal matter which I spoke to Mr. Speaker about very early in the day. But Mr. Speaker, I want to thank God once again. I want to thank the Almighty God, and I wish to also thank the people of Vieux Fort North continuously for their love and also for the prayers that they continue to offer to the Almighty God on my behalf. Je veux remercier bon Dieu, Mr. Speaker, avec ces gens Vieux Fort North là, qui a prédit ban moi, avec qui n'y a chai l'amour ban moi, avec qui a supporté moi, avec encouragé moi en toute difficulté. Mr. Speaker, there was a time between 2013 and 2016 when there was a Minister for Finance who worked hard to bring the finances of the country to good health. By 2013, Mr. Speaker, the fiscal performance of central government improved with a reduction in the overall deficit to $208.8 million or 5% of GDP in 2013-2014. From a 9.2% of GDP in 2012-2013. The fiscal performance of government again improved, Mr. Speaker, during 2014-2015. On page 16 of the review of the economy, I quote, "This reflected the improved economic fundamentals, government's fiscal operations continued to improve, evidenced further by a further reduction in the overall fiscal deficit. The overall deficit went to an estimated 3.1% of GDP compared to 3.8% of GDP. In other words, Mr. Speaker, there was a time when there was a Minister for Finance who worked very hard to ensure that our deficit was in good order and in good health. Mr. Speaker, la tenir en tant que la tenir ministre finance. La n'y a bagay un gouvernement yo ka créé déficit. Ça veut dire, Mr. Speaker, si vous avez dépensé plus l'argent passé ou ka joindre, on y peut acheter l'instant l'argent de l'autre côté. Avec si on y a économie, côté ou ka dépensé trop plus l'argent passé ou ka joindre, ou ka y trouver quoi difficulté parce que de les moun ka y paie pour l'argent. Mr. Speaker, c'est même qu'on souvenir en EBA, chaque là qui a venu prêter l'argent, moi ça, on va $10. Il vient, il va $5. L'autre mois, il veut $20. Ou il commence à payer prêter l'argent. And that is what the former Minister of Finance partly worked on. But Mr. Speaker, before I go into why it is important to have good fiscal management, I want to say that today we had another episode of members opposite continuing to state on the record what the party is all about. The last time it was the member for Kaswi Southeast, and this time it is the member for Soufrière, who confirmed the attitude of the member for Gozile when originally earlier on in the life of this parliament, not in the life of the parliament, but earlier on, public statements which the member for Gozile indicated referred to 80% or so of a certain group of workers as being Labour Party supporters. This morning, Mr. Speaker, the member for Soufrière indicated that in the public service, there are political hacks of the Labour Party, the public servants, who are making it difficult for the government to operate. I am happy that he made that statement, although I abhor it, Mr. Speaker. I want to say to the member for Soufrière, Mr. Speaker, that the hacks that you speak of are people who work hard at schools in St. Lucia, who went overseas to get their degrees, and some of them in St. Lucia to get their degrees, who worked hard at their jobs. Some of them obviously, as we go on and on, all of us can do better. But those people whom you refer to as hacks are the very people who are in the ministries that you are supposed to be managing. The people you describe as hacks have their qualifications. None of them use public funds to go to England to train for 2 weeks and then to come back so that the Public Service Commission can place them in a top job in the public service. Those people you refer to as hacks this morning, they didn't get 2 weeks costing $26,000 of taxpayers' money and come back to want the top job in the public service. Those people, she will never, ever in her life come for me. Mr. Speaker, those attacks are very distasteful, but they are good when they happen in the parliament because they go into the Hansard and they are recorded. I have never seen, all during my time as a minister of government, when the opposition had a march for the gas that they said we were making 680 on gas, and this word should be erased from history, but they had a poster called Niggers in Control of Employment. I did not see public servants during our time with actual posters coming from a ministry of government decrying demonstrators. I've never seen that before, but we saw it. We will not go out there and say public servants are putting posters through windows to curse demonstrators. But today, a minister of this government, a ministre gouvernement, kakouye monika toa vayepi political hack Labour Party. Mr. Speaker, so on the score of fiscal management, this government has reversed the trend of better management of the fiscal situation that they found in 2016. Unlike what the PM wants you to believe, and my other colleagues and comrades have said the same, all the indicators performed worse than in 2016. Mr. Speaker, toutes ces bagailles là qui ka moutue qui manière en santé en économie, yo plus mauvais parce yo te en dernier l'année, yo tout. And I urge members and those following, whether on Facebook, on any live media, or simply listening online, as there is no Radio St. Lucia to carry it by radio. And so I guess if you have no data, and data in the world today is the most expensive commodity. That's why Bill Gates is where he is today, #1. It's not even oil, Mr. Speaker, as you well know. But if those people have no data or complementary Wi-Fi, they cannot follow the debates. To follow NTN, you must have data. You must be able to purchase data. And so I urge everyone who is listening to the debate, Mr. Speaker, to check and double check whatever you hear from the Prime Minister and members opposite. Because throughout their term so far, the contradictions in statements by the Prime Minister can fill a book probably called Misspoke Deliberately. Mr. Speaker, let nous garder première page, estimation. En anglais, on dit estimates of revenue and expenditure. Tout bagay en dedans là, ka moutue bagay plus mauvais. Mais le Premier ministre là ka dit ou, qui tout bagay ka vin bon. So me ka dit tout moun, là où ton Premier ministre la parler, koui acheter livre, aller en computer ou, parce que presque tout bagay yo dit, il pas vrai. And the evidence is there, Mr. Speaker. the estimates of expenditure and revenue for 2018-2019, when I go through the various heads, the questions that are in my mind are, Aibo Dear Musa, what will they privatize next? That's what I say to myself. Or Aibo Dear, which overseas business partner or firm or friend will get a piece of St. Lucia or its institutions? Because that is what they're about when you look at the estimates, Mr. Speaker, and I'll show you in a while. I ask myself, what deal is in the mix? What deal have they made overseas? What secret deal have they made? And only when it's exposed by the media, they're running to explain, and that's why they're coming in for law to shut up the media. But I'm coming to that in a while too. And I ask myself when I look at the estimates, which set of solutions are they displacing now? Qui laisse cette lycéen peut-être qui a perdu yo? Ou bien qui laisse groupe cette lycéen, c'est National Trust ou bien l'autre groupe, yo même ça fait National Trust pas aujourd'hui. Which set of solutions will lose their patrimony and their heritage? And more significantly, Mr. Speaker, is what the PM saying about the estimates. Are those things true, and can they be verified? My colleagues and comrades have dealt in great detail with the various items on the summary page of the estimates, Mr. Speaker. And on page 9 of the Economic and Social Review, the government, and I quote, the government's fiscal position is expected to deteriorate in 2017 with smaller current and primary surpluses. The overall deficit is estimated to rise, representing 2.5% of GDP compared to 1.6% of GDP. Now, unquote. Now, I didn't write that, Mr. Speaker. It's in the Social and Economic Review. Now, what about that? And I hear other members saying, oh, it was so good and so right and so on. Possibly in the policy debate, the Prime Minister can explain why his government has taken that route. But tell us the truth. Don't come here playing as if it's okay. If it's going down that way, there may be an explanation why you want to go down that way. But don't try to change the figures and say, that's not what it is. And that is the problem I have with this government, Mr. Speaker. Bagay la dou van an nouek blanc, mais yo ka dou c'est pas ça. Yo vle changer l'idée ou. Parce que yo kwe toujours, yo an bay Facebook la ka changer l'idée moun. But Facebook is learning a hard lesson today, just yesterday. Mark Zuckerberg has admitted that he will go to the House of Commons. But anyway, policy debate, we're coming to that. Mr. Speaker, if this government continues on this path, with the Minister for Finance and the other minister in the Ministry of Finance, and the numerous consultants, I remember leading up to the last general elections, and between 2011 and 2016, Mr. Speaker, it was a refrain of consultants, consultant, consultant, consultant. You have heard from the leader of the opposition, who has demonstrated clearly to you that this government continues to increase its budgetary allocations for consultants year in, year out. This government, Mr. Speaker, will place fear in the boardrooms of governments and other individuals and firms that wish to buy our short-term instruments if our fiscal health continues to deteriorate. And that is what's important. Many of our Caribbean brother and sister countries have learned the hard way when they did not manage their fiscal health. And it is the ordinary people, those people who can't buy duty-free things and who can't fly to Miami to see the doctor, it is those people who will be affected, Mr. Speaker. Si gouvernement pa gade manière il ka fait affaire, c'est ces moun sa la qui ka souffert. In respect of revenues, it is interesting to pay attention to government revenues on the budget summary page. An explanation is also given on page 9 of the Social Economic Review of 2017. What has actually happened, Mr. Speaker, is that this government has increased the tax burden on the working people of St. Lucia. They can explain that it's for roads. They can explain that it's for this and that. But the fact is, the government has increased the tax burden on the working people of St. Lucia. Gouvernement a mis plus de taxes à les gens Saint-Lucien, à les Saint-Lucien qui travaillent, à les Saint-Lucien qui sa gen ti motoka pour mener famille au travail ou bien aller à l'hôpital. Gouvernement a mis plus de taxes à les ces moun sa là. I quote on this very page, lower VAT and income tax receipts were offset by the excise tax on fuel, among other things like the CIP. And so the increase in the fuel tax is another example of the government doing mixed actions, Mr. Speaker, I believe to dazzle and mislead the people. Now, using the tax to build roads is something I will come to in a while. But my contention is this. Tell the people as it is. Tell them you are increasing taxes on them. Before the campaign, you said, in fact, the night of the campaign, we are removing the Labour Party from the backs of the people of St. Lucia. And you have come in and you have increased the tax burden on the backs of the people of St. Lucia. The fuel tax of $1.50 per gallon, a 60% increase in the tax, Mr. Speaker. So a family who spends $400 on groceries monthly, but also drive a small to medium car with a loan from a credit union or a bank, pays 12.5% VAT on the groceries. They save how much? About $10 from 15% VAT. But that same family, if you calculate the tax per year in the fuel tax per year will pay between $4,000 and $6,000 a year, depending on where they drive to. And I've done the calculations for people who live in Castries and go to Grosley on a daily basis, and I've done the calculations those going to Viewfort. So it's not an exact figure, but depends on where you live. Mr. Speaker, so while the same family will save $10 on $400 grocery bill, and they have a small car, they will pay to the Prime Minister and the Minister and the Minister for Finance $4,000 to $6,000 every year in fuel taxes. So yo ti kaka de le VAT la, ek sou alege commission ek bay kon sa, pi te tout sauver $10, mais là ou calculate l'argent ou ka paye, là ou ay mette gas en motoka ou ben truck ou ben van ou ka paye gouvernement environ $6,000 tous les années pour tax. So the tax burden is on the people. The more you drive, the more you work, the more you go to church, the more you go to the farm, the more you pay to the two ministers of finance. One minister of finance and the other one. The other minister in the Ministry of Finance. So if you don't want to pay the $6,000, you go to church less. Or you have to reduce on the amount of trips that you make. The fishers, and I've said this before, Mr. Speaker, the fishers, and I've calculated it for the fishers from Viewfort and those who go out doing pelagic fishery, way out, and for those who go to do the near-shore fishery, c'est pêcheur, ça ka le plus fondant, en anglais nous appelons pelagic, avec ça ka wete reef fishery, near-shore fishery. Those who go out pay $13,000 in fuel tax. And that's a fisher who goes to sea only 40 weeks in the month, so 40 weeks in the year. Ek meza fay over, pêcheur. Those who go near shore pay less, about $6,000 in gas tax. And so the burden, the tax burden, when you look at the revenues from taxes, is on the working people of St. Lucia. And you see the contrast. So the working people of St. Lucia are bearing the brunt of government policy when it comes to increased taxes. But the hotels, say Munwaya Yaila, yo, $24 million, don't pay it. But the person who lives in Bellevue or Piero or Grace or Babuno, the working class, the working people, the public servants, they are the ones who are bearing the brunt of the tax burden. Not the others. You cannot develop a society, Mr. Speaker, in that way. You cannot develop a society in that way. Because you are developing inequality that will create problems for you in the future. And you can go to people like Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel laureate, and many others who speak to those things. So the players in the economy, if all the players in the economy would hold the hands of the working people to make that sacrifice, or to offset that sacrifice, then all the millions of dollars that they have been given in tax breaks that they owe to the government would at least cushion the sacrifice that the working people of this country have to make. So we need the roads, but it is the teachers, the fire officers, and the professionals who are paying for it. So when we bang our hands on the table, we have to tell the working people of St. Lucia, we are building roads for you, but you are paying for it. You are paying for it directly. And so when they speak, Mr. Speaker, of the buoyancy in the economy, Lani growth. A minister for finance says January is December. There's December in January. So lady, moon happy. Two part two only one pay settle see, moon happy. I want to ask the members of parliament whether they are confident that they can go to their constituencies and tell the elderly people, the youth, that things are better with them. Whether they can tell the farmers and the fishers that today things are better than they were in 2016. Whether they can tell the owners of vehicles who pay thousands of dollars in fuel taxes that it is better today. And whether they can tell the young people, whether it's of Piero, Bellevue, Vigier, Grace, Miku, wherever, that things are better today than they were before. Tell all the people who have lost their jobs in the home health care program in Vieux-Fort North. And they fired all of them. There are some constituencies, Mr. Speaker, where they allowed 2 or 3. There's a lady in Vieux-Fort North who's the minister for firing in Vieux-Fort North. There's a lady in Vieux-Fort North who's close to the government, and I'm going to come to her in a while, who is a minister for firing. Even her own mother, she's working very hard to fire from the job that she has. I have the evidence. I don't speak without evidence. And how you know who I'm talking about? So, Mr. Speaker, go and tell those people who have lost their jobs that things are better. And I guess you can tell the nurses that things are better, things are getting better. And you can tell the doctors that things are getting better. I did say doctor say nurse like say muna you fire, especially of you for North. You fire dernier ces gens qui de 80 c'est grand muna nice. Et qui on est mette moun qui pas train, yo pas ça injection, yo pas pièce, yo pas certificat rien pour regarder ces moun nan. I dit ces moun ça tout by primaire. Mr. Speaker, it is evident that the working people of St. Lucia are the Tibuics of this government when it comes to the economic policy. The working people. Not those who can contribute more. It is the working people. And so the lady whose house got burnt cannot get assistance to buy a few sheets of plywood because she's in distress, because she should have insurance. Ici, vous avez ni insurance, avec un budget, la pas ni rien pour lui. Parce que nous n'y pour tirer $6 million by moun qui a pay house tax. Where is the balance in the operations of the government in terms of its allocations? And I repeat, Mr. Speaker, the privatization that is rampant, or the discussions about privatization that is rampant, the secret deals and placing a heavy burden on the local working people of St. Lucia. Our patrimony. People are afraid. The people of Opico and Vieux-Fort North do not know whose house will be taken off and what kind of animals they'll not be able to keep next to the infamous DSH. Page 269, head 46. There's a man who stood in the parliament yesterday, I believe it was, Mr. Speaker, a member of parliament, who spoke about the lack of programs which spoke to the history of St. Lucia. He said we need to improve those programs. But I remember every Sunday I listened to programs on Radio St. Lucia, various programs, lectures and so on, about St. Lucia's history, about lots of things about St. Lucia. When a hurricane or bad weather, that is the one radio station that we could depend on. And you did not need to have internet or cable TV to get your Radio St. Lucia. But this gentleman stood there, spoke about that, and again placed on record a specific show. He called it politically all kinds of names, when he referred to the actions that the government will take to deal with the media. Now, it is not my place to defend the media, because I interact with them for better or for worse. Most times for better. But it's not my place. They can defend themselves. They have the time, they have the papers, they have the radios, they have internet to defend themselves. But I want to note that he does not show any capital amount in the estimates, but he was sent there by the Prime Minister and the Cabinet to be the dagger aimed at the press. And Mr. Speaker, on the head 46, he continued to speak about obscenities, and he quoted from the law. And there are other members who spoke about, oh, people are too obscene in St. Lucia today. Oh, my goodness. We have all become paragons of virtue. And if we open that door, let us all begin to talk about virtue and morals and so on. It's a good place to go. Let's talk about obscenities. Despite the criticisms of the St. Lucia Labour Party, no one can say that the St. Lucia Labour Party caused any radio station to close, unlike UWP did in the past. They closed RSL, they caused RCI to close, they closed Radio Kilibwe, and the pattern has returned. So this MP stands up and says that it's time to shut up the media because of politically, whatever name he called it. So the people of Vieux-Fort North who write to the newspapers and who call talk shows, watch out. The UWP wants to shut you down. Vous voulez pige bagay radio station ek pige bagay talk show host. And anytime, Mr. Speaker, a tyrant wants to develop, the first thing he does and the first thing his government does is to close down the media and take control of the media. Thank God for the internet. But even while, Mr. Speaker, the members spoke about those things, today, right here in the House, I was out on an important call, and something happened in the House, And while this very government have prevented media houses from coming to film things, they say NTN will give it to them. There is somebody sitting in the house right here now who filmed what happened between the leader of the opposition and another member and put it on Facebook right away from their government. We have the evidence. So while they're talking about that, right here in the house, in the galleries, within the precincts of the parliament, somebody with a cell phone filmed the two members having an exchange, and it's on Facebook on the United Park already. That have a lot to do with Head 46. I am just demonstrating to you, Mr. Speaker, that what they say is just in the wind. They are right here in the house filming. But the parliament themselves, they said in the government that the media can't come and take pictures.
Honorable member, I need you, just one point here. I need you, honorable member, to clarify this framing part. Do not give the impression, because when you see the house, it becomes the house now. When I'm outside, it's not the house. So I need you to clarify that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I did say, and if you listen to the recording, Mr. Speaker.
No, I'm just saying, you said the house, the framing in the house.
Within the precincts of the chamber, I said that. So if I said the house, I removed the house. Within the precincts of the chamber, I said that. I don't know if this is wrong.
I do not want you to give the impression that this happened while we were in session.
No.
Or if anything happened, it happened while we were in session.
Okay, Mr. Speaker, it did not happen while we were in session, but it happened within the precincts of the House. Mr. Speaker, Head 48, the Department of Housing, Urban Renewal, and Telecommunications. There are 3 areas in Vieux-Fort North where there are relatively large tracts of crown lands or government lands. Viancel in Belleville, La Retraite in Grace, Opicon and Vigier. 4 places. Our government placed Opicon in the PROUD program, lands to be surveyed, roads to be built after surveys, and titles to be given for at least, we were hoping, at $3 per square foot. NDC has had a history in that area, and I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that the program continues so that the people of Opicon, ces gens Opicon, sa joignent tit pouteyo, et travail la kay continue, pour yo joignent place la, yo ka wete ale. We also encourage as a cabinet, Mr. Speaker, for utilities and electricity services to be given to the people, to be connected to houses, as long as the people were in discussions with either NDC or Crown Lands. I do care about land for the people of Opicon. Moi, about terre pour ces mouna qui te a souffert about hurricane et nous pour changer yo. Especially the people of Fonjoye and some people at Moncayen. I've spoken about this before, and the work started while we were in government. In fact, I have letters from the officials in the Department of Physical Planning, and we were working very well on this, and I'm hoping that this government does not stop the progress of this work so that those people can be removed from areas close to the rivers. I hope, Mr. Speaker, that you pas privatize toutes ces terres-là. Terre Belleville, terre Opicon. I hope la pani pièce secret deal pour privatize ces terres-là. Head 51, Equity, Social Justice. You cannot speak about economic growth without attention to solving inequality. I just said so, Mr. Speaker, and it's important. So programs like Breaking the Silence, the after-school program, and my colleague from Castle South spoke about the reduction in the after-school program. Programme après l'école, c'est un bon programme. Et l'année, place of Vieux-Fort North, koyo ka fait programme ça, like c'est moun ka fait bien dedans. And I think this is a program that should be encouraged, and the students who are in the after-school program do well. The home care program, Mr. Speaker, is one of the programs of the St. Lucia Labour Party that was kept by the United Workers' Party, of course, with alterations in many constituencies And as I've said before, in Vieux-Fort North, all of the people who were trained and certified were let go, and I am hoping that this program continues for the benefit of the elderly people. We see a reduction in the social sector from 35 million to 19 million. No specific item for creative industries and so on, but an increase in the consultancies. Education, head 52. Mr. Speaker, éducation c'est un secteur, un pays c'est ici, qui besoin plus attention. And when we come to the policy debate, Mr. Speaker, there is a tremendous number of points and a tremendous amount that we need to speak about when it comes to education. We believe, Mr. Speaker, that the items that are budgeted for in education need to be explained. We do not see in education, Mr. Speaker, any new trajectory, any new ideas, any revolutionary ideas for change in education that the government promised before they came into government and now that they're in government. Mr. Speaker, en éducation toujours, I'm very passionate about the school feeding program. And they spoke a lot about the school feeding program. I note this year that there is a reduction in the amount for the refurbishment of kitchens. And I wish to urge the government to look at this policy again. This estimate, the line 202 and 203. Because to have a successful school feeding program, it's very important that you refurbish the kitchens. We had a very good program, Mr. Speaker. And in the policy debate, I'll go again and list all of the schools. And the new kitchens and new appliances and so on to support the school feeding program. I think that is very important. I've said before, while I was Minister for Agriculture, and I'll say it again, no restaurant in this country, no good restaurant, should have better conditions than a school kitchen. The conditions should be equal. I'm not saying they should have all the fancy appliances and equipment, but in terms of the basic conditions, there should be no restaurant in St. Lucia that can boast of having a cleaner environment, an environment with more standards and procedures than a school kitchen. I don't need to explain the reason for that. And so that's why when we were in government, we ensured that our improved school feeding program included the refurbishment of kitchens. And if you go to the schools where we had this program, you'll see new tiling, appliances, and everything like that. So I wish to encourage the minister et gouvernement pour garder school feeding program ça là, avec mettez plus l'argent pour manger cette cuisine là, à l'école là pour continuer le travail là. Department 53 speaks to health and wellness. And health and wellness, Mr. Speaker, over the last few months and over the last year and a half, indeed over our entire life, is very important topical issue, and it is something that requires a whole parliamentary debate. There is an amount for the new national hospital, the Owen King EU Hospital. I don't see an amount for St. Jude Hospital, Mr. Speaker, but we are hearing, there's evidence based on what's in the media that the government intends to build a new hospital. I will say no more about that for now, until the policy debate. But it's just passing strange, Mr. Speaker, that the member for Castres South it's not passing strange, but he did announce that the new St. Jude Hospital will be built in an area next to the brewery. Now, we are from the South and we know that area very well. So I'm looking forward to the time when the government will make its pronouncements. It will be interesting, Mr. Speaker, to see how the world-famous Heineken Brewery will navigate the marketing of its world-famous Heineken right next to the newly built hospital. I'm just saying it will be interesting, because no hospital can be built next to the brewery if it is not just a few feet away from the brewery. We are born there and we know the space. But this government claims it can do the impossible. I await that debate. And to see the pictures worldwide of the new St. Jude Hospital with all of its septic tanks and all of its medical facilities next to the world-famous Heineken International Brewery, and that being marketed. I don't know. They are the gurus. Mr. Speaker, for Youth and Sports and Head 54, I note that the members spoke about playing fields. And again, I remind Mr. Speaker that a Bellevue, là nous un gouvernement, nous acheter terre qui te lion plein fila. Nous faire design pour plein fila. And I'm hoping that the people of Bellevue are not forgotten in all of that. We place lights on the Bellevue court, and the people of Bellevue themselves are working to improve that court, and I'm hoping that the government will not discriminate because they're from that area. And the playing fields, the Grace, Vigier, and Montcaine playing field, we worked with the physical planning unit again, work had started, and I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, that the minister encourages that work to go on. Say playing field en Vieux Fort Neuf, the Pierrot playing field was totally resurfaced, and already we were getting ready to put stands and so on with the Grace playing field, because more extensive work had to be done on the Bellevue playing field. I heard a while ago that the minister said that a playing field in Vieux Fort Neuf will get lights. Now, any good thing that comes to the people of Vieux Fort Neuf, I will not argue with that. But I go back to the very point, Mr. Speaker. Je vais en même point. Même si l'élection est goumé, même si yo gagne élection, c'est janvier Fort Neuf la choisi moi comme membre parlement yo. Un parlement qui dit la qui lights. Ma savant la qui field, I don't know which playing field. Mr. Speaker, I am not aware of this. And when the member for Babuno apologized the last time for the Savants Bay fisheries thing, you would have thought, well, okay, maybe they are turning the page. But here it is, in the parliament it's been announced, and the parliamentary representative knows nothing about it. But tanto. For local government, Mr. Speaker, head 57 to 11. I note the $1.4 million for community projects, and I understand that the money will go to the local government, the constituency councils. I believe the constituency councils need support. Ces constituency councils a besoin support. Et n'importe l'argent gouvernement qui baille ces constituency councils c'est un beau bagay. But forgive me, Mr. Speaker, I come from an experience in Vieux Fort Neuf, and I can never not speak about that. Moi sorti à des expériences Vieux Fort Neuf, côté constituency council te servi pour presque 10 000 millions l'argent nous passer en dedans, moun siye check, nous ni tous ces stop là, tous ces documents. And the current council invited me to a meeting. I attended, and I quoted to them the act which stipulates that the member of parliament is not something you might do or you want to do, you know. It is in the act. Qui membre parlement supposé évoluer en disant que membre parlement supposé jouer minutes meeting là. I must say that I did receive a few, and I must say that has stopped. But I urge through this medium the council in Vieux Fort Neuf, and I told them so. I urge them to manage this money in the proper way, using the proper procedures and the proper protocols. It is good that they're getting money. Because moi toujours dit, ça passe encore ça brûler livre là, et brûler caille pour tout document c'est disparaître. Those days are gone. You can mash up the computer, you can throw the phone, and they know that very well, Mr. Speaker. Analytica, they know it well. Years and years and years after, proper investigations are carried out, and the truth is brought to light. So I urge the council, for their own sake, to do what is proper and involve the parliamentary representatives in what they're doing. I look forward to the official discussions on the lights in Vieux Fort Neuf. But some people say I'm the so-called rep. They are the rep. Mr. Speaker, sorry. I move to Department of Agriculture, Head 41. Mr. Speaker, agriculture, obviously, always garners a lot of debate, especially between the member for Babuno and myself, from times. And I've always said to people that both the member of Babuno and I debate, and we argue, and we come with our things and debate. But I never hold ill will with anybody. I debate on the facts. And when I present the facts, you can say what you want, you can spin it, but I debate on the facts. Head 41, Mr. Speaker, speaks to a reduction in capital expenditure for that department. But I recognize it is not just agriculture, because this department has been changed a bit from what it was before, and so you have other areas, physical planning, I believe, and some others. There's Black Sigatoka, which is not showing any amount. Last year, the minister said Black Sigatoka is in the banana rehabilitation program. There is the BAM program, Agricultural Transformation Program, the Land Bank Initiative, Banana Productivity Improvement Project. Under head 41...
Honorable Member, you have 15 minutes. Sir.
Thank you. Under head 41, Mr. Speaker, the situation today with bananas is this. Black Sigatoka has resurfaced in a big way and decimating especially the farms in the valleys. Farmers continue to be suspended. Lenuteza ka kuma manager Black Sigatoka, upadeka même tan Black Sigatoka already wako. When we came into government, almost every night Black Sigatoka, they used to call me Black Sigatoka. Because I felt and I knew, both by way of my training and by way of records, that you cannot have a successful banana industry without first controlling Black Sigatoka. The member for Babuno has a different view. He said it's productivity, production. The last time we had that debate. And my argument is, no matter how many acres of bananas you put down, if you do not control Black Sigatoka, you're wasting your time. Because productivity does not account for disease, the disease mechanisms and controls that Black Sigatoka is not yellow Sigatoka. And so we are in a situation where Black Sigatoka again is raising its head. Mr. Speaker, fertilizers and farmers, kagoumen a pays sa abouisan. When I meet with my farmers, you got fertilizer là-bas, nous y toaka. Farmers are still waiting for the boatloads of bananas to be shipped to France every week. What happened to the trial that went to France, if it did? The container. What happened? The estimates from 2012 and 2016 tell of the investments that were made in bananas, and the results are there. The results are there. Mr. Speaker, we know that there are times when agricultural production in various commodities go up based on the weather, based on different vagaries, based on drought, based on hurricanes and storms. We know that. What is important is for people to tell the truth. And that is the thing about this government. Ni ministre avec premier ministre, en la radio et télévision, qu'a dit moun avec un papier journal, qui production fig monter par 200%. The minister is on record, and he never denied it. Well, I did not hear him deny it. That banana exports increased by 200% over 2016. If you didn't say it, tell the newspaper to take out your name, because that's what's there. And if you look at the exports, overall exports declined. So the minister did not come out to say, okay, that was a mistake, people. But just like the Prime Minister said about the 43%, he could have come out earlier, but he allowed it. So do you call that a lie? If you knowingly know, if you knowingly make the mistake, you knowingly make the mistake, and you allow it, and afterwards you come back and you say that, you know. And then you say you misspoke. Year to date. So, Mr. Speaker, there was no 200% in banana exports. In fact, Mr. Speaker, banana exports declined. So the farmers were worse off in 2017, and they had no adverse weather conditions, relatively speaking, compared to other years in 2017. relatively speaking. And so the investments in agriculture must be accounted for. The livestock development program, the program from IBSA at Beauséjour, what will happen to it? Or have they cancelled it? This program là pour développer livestock by Kosaza Council. Mr. Speaker, I dare say to you that since 2011, when we came into government, we found an agricultural sector with 3 consecutive years of decline. Even when you remove Hurricane Thomas damage, 3 consecutive years of decline. And it's in the Social Economic Review of 2011. I have it there, I'm not going to read it, but if he challenges and I'm still there, I'll give him the book. 3 consecutive years of decline. And the Social Economic Review of 2011 actually removes Hurricane Thomas and says, in addition to Hurricane Thomas, here are the reasons. Disease, black sigatoka, infested fields, farmers living because of all those kinds of things. It's there. And we had to work with those 3 consecutive years of decline and left, page 22, 2011, look at that. I have all of them. I don't work without things. So when we came in, what we did is to work. There were years of decline. In 2014, we had the Christmas Eve trough of 2013. But even though we had the Christmas Eve trough of 2013, in 2014, if you look at the sales to hotels and supermarkets, in a 3-year period between 2012 and 2016, there has never been a Minister of Agriculture who led the Agriculture Ministry with such figures, the highest rates of increase of all commodities. And he can't challenge it. And this is not about the minister and myself. I've always said it's about the farmers. What I don't like is the deceit and the untruths. He goes around, last time, Mr. Speaker, he said that even though banana exports to England, even though banana exports were not 200%, they are higher than when I was there at any time. But that is not true. He knows that the figures are there. All I'm saying, let's tell the farmers the truth. Tell the farmers the truth. And let us work to ensure, because agriculture is not a one-year thing. That's not like producing beer. You need systems that are working properly. So when you break down the Black Sigatoka Management Program in the way it was, là où tu es, tu vas faire ça ouvre avec lui. Là qu'il y a Black Sigatoka. Est-ce que vous pas manager Black Sigatoka ou pas manager pièce fig ou pas plantain also, macabou, all of that gone. So, Mr. Speaker, I say to you that the Minister for Agriculture needs to sit down, look at the truth of the figures, and begin a strategy that will take the agricultural sector to higher heights. All of the indicators have declined. And don't tell me because of Matthew in 2016. Because Matthew happened in September of 2016. The Christmas Eve trough happened in December of 2013. By December of 2014, you can look at the figures. You understand? So all of them have declined, and it is in the policy debate we will go deeper into the reasons for that. Mr. Speaker, the Viewford water supply project, and before I say that, I just want to inject one thing before the policy comes. We can take all documents, Mr. Speaker, all of the Social Economic Review, and I have the documents from 1997, the statistical reports from 1997. He likes to talk about banana production. We can take all of them, and this is not a contest between people. This Minister for Agriculture, so far, since 2001, is the worst performing Minister for Agriculture by way of data, not by way of talking loud, you know. It's not by talking loud. It's not by I said, let's go back from there. Yeah, I'm dreaming because you don't read the documents. With the time I have left, Mr. Speaker, in the policy, I'll bring the figures. He speaks about 2008 and banana production. In 2006, I'm saying that he's the worst in all of them, and the figures are there. In 2006, when he became Minister for Agriculture, okay, his net When he left, there was a net decline in banana exports. No, but that's what he likes. So I want to put it on record, and I challenge him to bring all the figures from way back when. And he's the worst so far. I don't know for the future. He's the worst performing Minister for Agriculture based on the social economic reviews of all of those years. And I put it here because he likes to do that. Mr. Speaker, before I close, I want to say this. You can talk all you want. The figures don't lie. We all said it. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. I thank the people of Beaufort North for returning me to the Parliament. And if I leave the Parliament tomorrow, there is one record that I will take with me, and I'm proud of it. Since independence, no Minister for Agriculture has been returned to the Parliament consecutively. None. Except the member for Beaufort North, Moses Musa Baptiste. None. You can go and check the records. But you don't understand. It's okay. Check the records. None. He was such a guru in Babuno, guru in agriculture. The farmers rejected him. I'm not saying I'll not be rejected tomorrow, but so far, until now, I'm the only former Minister of Agriculture who was returned consecutively to the Parliament. That's instructive. I thief the elections. Did you hear that, Mr. Speaker? I thief the elections. The member for Castries South East, I thief the elections. It's good. Finally, as I wrap up, Mr. Speaker, pressure burst pipe, that's what it is. Finally, as I wrap up, Mr. Speaker, I urge, as the former Prime Minister said, I urge the Minister for Agriculture, I encourage him to continue the Beaufort Water Supply Redevelopment Project, because that project will benefit the people of Grace with a new dam and everything and the water systems. No, but I'm just saying that the Beaufort Water Supply Redevelopment Project will benefit the people of Pierrot and Vigier and so on with better quality water and the pressures and everything. I also wish to say, Mr. Speaker, that the history of the performance of this Minister of Finance will determine what happens in the future. I urge the members of this House, I urge the members of this House to use the opportunity given to us and to them to secure the future of our people. And I urge the government, I urge the Minister for Agriculture today, unfortunately I can't be there, but I urge the Minister for Agriculture to apologize to the people for saying that exports went up by 200% and the Prime Minister saying by 30% or 300%. If it's a mistake, tell the people it's a mistake. And I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your indulgence. I ask you to look forward to the policy debate, as I'll have another opportunity to bring all of the records for agriculture. And I ask the Minister, as we are not vexed, to do this parliamentary joint committee on food security. I am willing, Mr. Speaker. I am willing, and I'm saying so publicly in the Parliament, to work on a joint parliamentary committee for food security in St. Lucia. We did some things. We took the document to the cabinet. The National Food Security Plan has been passed by the cabinet. I urge the member to form this joint committee, and I'm willing, as a member of the opposition, to work with him on national food security, because if we don't continue to work on this, we are going to have problems in the future. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I ask you to forgive me as I leave very soon to attend to this matter which we spoke about. Thank you very much. Thank you.